It's time for the podcast, which is all about the world of marketing on television through TV shopping networks and infomercials. Are we on the air? I'm your host, Sean Wilsey, and for over 29 years, I've hosted shows on cable shopping networks, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. And now I want to be your guide into this world, explaining how it works, why it works, what doesn't work, and introduce you to the people who are making it the success that it is today. Nobody knows exactly how many people were watching QVC on its first day, November 24th, 1986, but those who did were introduced to Kathy Levine, a new breed of TV shopping host who wouldn't be loud and honk horns, but would be smart, educated, attractive, and funny. For the next decade plus, Kathy would lead QVC through tremendous growth, helping to turn it from the butt of comedians' jokes to a place Hollywood was now interested in. Today, Kathy is an in-demand speaker and trainer while continuing to lend her name to a jewelry collection and also a very popular line of weight loss products available on QVC and HSN. It is my very distinct honor to welcome Kathy Levine to our We on the Air today. Kathy, I can't mean this more. You and I have never met until today, but this is such an honor for me to have you on the show. Bob Circosta and you, to me, are the two real pioneers in this industry, so thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you, and Bob is the best of the best, no question. You were in good hands with him for sure.
Well, and he was, for those that haven't listened to the episodes, he was the one that really started HSN by accident when it was Home Shopping Club back in Florida. And Kathy was there, as I mentioned, on that very first day, the very first night, because I think it was at night when you launched on QVC. Before we get too much into that night, I have to ask you something I've been dying to ask you since I read about this years ago. You have the most famous pencil test ever. I use what you did as a pencil test as an example to people. Explain why the pencil test is important to your career and exactly what you did.
Well, when you're auditioning or interviewing for a sales job, they don't care that you like people or that you are a team player. They want to know what you're going to bring to the table that's interesting, creative, and different. I knew I was going to be asked to sell something, most likely the pencil. So I had in my head prepared what I might say. And I tend to like to do things in a creative way. I am creative. I can't do boring tasks, which is why I was fired from all my jobs prior to, because they were sort of day to day, boring, never different. This was something that looked interesting. So when they said you have to sell a pencil and a telephone, I knew that the segue was going to be important, that I had to actually create some flow between this piece of lead and that piece of sound machine. So I started off by saying, aren't we glad Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone? Because you are able to call your mom and you could use a pencil so you don't break your fingernails. Brilliant. And you know, pencils are great because you can erase your mistakes. Nobody knows you're an idiot. And if you're nervous, you can chew on a pencil. And if you really want to be smart commercially, break the pencil in half, keep one and sell the other half. So you're making money. Now you're an entrepreneur. Brilliant. And once you've done this pencil stuff, now you can tap on the keys and call your mom and say, see, I didn't need to be a doctor. All I had to do was learn about sales. And I don't know, I went on in some crazy thing and they actually thought I was an idiot. And I left the room and I'm sure that audition was over. And it wasn't.
For anyone listening, though, that is the brilliance of Kathy Levine, because that's how you do the pencil test. Everybody else has done the same sort of presentation ever. That is brilliant. When you were, because this was your audition for QVC, had you seen television shopping? Had you seen home shopping?
It did not exist where I lived. Okay. I was in Philadelphia, the city, at the time I was interested in auditioning, which I really wasn't interested in. My girlfriend told me to go do it. She thought I'd be good. I thought she was nuts. Oh, I had no aspirations. Actually, I had no hope that they would hire a 36-year-old, somewhat overweight, kind of quirky. I'm no Vanna White. I never expected I'd be accepted into television, but what I didn't know is that it was a sales job, not a beauty job. And therefore, I had the edge. I just didn't know it. But anyway, to answer your question, which I forgot what the question was because I'm old now.
Had you watched, because Home Shopping was still
Yes.
in infancy, so I was wondering if you had watched Home Shopping
No,
Club. Okay.
it didn't exist in Philadelphia at all, but there was a tiny little Pottstown, for those of you who may know Pottstown, Pennsylvania, there was a tiny little show where the woman had a monitor up high. So she would talk up like, oh, you can't see me, I'm sorry, but she would talk up to the monitor and people would call in and totally embarrass her, say the dumbest things, like kids used to do. Yeah. Is your refrigerator running? You better catch it. Stupid stuff. And I called somebody and I said, there's no way I will ever stoop that low to do something stupid like that. And when I went in for the interview, I pretty much said, there's no way I could do this. It's crazy. Go to a store, buy what you want. And they said, we're going to be the Saks Fifth Avenue of shopping, and we will be the way people will do their shopping, especially if they don't live in a major city and they have no access to a good store. And I called my friend and I said to my friend, what would you do? And he said, honey, it's television. Run, take the job.
Yeah.
I did.
Because when QVC launched, it was so very different than what Home Shopping Club was at the time. Take me to that first night, because it was you, it was John Eastman, who was from Bob Bowersox, right? But John was from Home Shopping Club. He was cut from that cloth. You were being brought into this as the new girl in town. What was that first night like?
Well, if I may back up,
yes,
we had a 6-week training period. They hired about 24 of us. After those auditions, they picked who they wanted and they stuck us in a classroom for 8 hours a day for 6 weeks. Wow. And they drilled us on, first of all, the Dale Carnegie course of how to remember names, which was hilarious. I can't remember my own name. And I'm terrible, but don't forget when a caller called in, she would say, hi, I'm Mary from so-and-so. And they wanted us to remember that because we didn't have the sophisticated equipment of putting stuff on the lower third, la, la, la. So we had this training and every day we were, what is it? What does it do? Why is it important? Why do I care? How do I use it? When would I use it? Who would buy it? It was who, what, when, where, why, journalism 101, sales 101. So I learned quite well. And every day we got up and we did something with a product. We were told for, quote, graduation to bring in a product and know it inside and out. So I brought in a clock radio because there's a lot to say about a clock radio. If you wake up in the middle of the night, you can see the numbers. Don't forget, I'm going back 35 years. Yeah. We were not quite as sophisticated as tapping your wrist or asking Alexa. This was open your eyes and see what time it is. So this clock radio had the ability to a snooze button. So if you were going to go to the airport, you wouldn't oversleep. You could be awakened the second time, third time. So I had this whole thing ready. I mean, I'm ready. They say, who wants to go first? My hand shoots up in the air. I will. And I get up there and I have my radio and my producer says, oh, no, you're not going to sell your product. You're going to sell somebody else's. And he points to this enormous wooden fork and wooden spoon hanging from a piece of leather that you buy in the islands as a souvenir.
Oh, no.
I thought, I'm dead. What do you say about this? It's dumb. I wouldn't buy it. So I thought, well, have you ever had an unusual corner in your home where you wish you could put a painting up, but you can't because it's not square, it's a corner, it's narrow. You need just some narrow, long thing to hang. And have you ever taken a trip to the Bahamas where you go to the straw market and those wonderful women go, hey, beautiful, hey, lady, come and buy from me. And then you bring a souvenir home and you hang it on your wall. And every time you look at it, you are reminded of that wonderful trip you took. So that was my pitch. That was what took the owner of the company, may he rest in peace, Joe Siegel. That's what pushed him over the edge to allow me not just to take the job, but to open the show. So that was a very special honor to be with Bob and John, because they were TV people. Bob was radio. He had experience. And John, of course, was TV. So here I am. And I've seen that video of opening night, and I don't think I knew I was on camera. I was like miserable. I had no smile on my face. I did my own hair, my own makeup. I wore this dress that was like 8 inches too long. I looked like such a jerk. But, my mom was there, my dad was there, and the founder. Yeah. And the business. There were probably 20 people in the studio. And I didn't know anything. I just was told to sell the Sears wetback and a pet watch.
Yeah.
And I did. And, I'm lucky I kept the job, because I think I was quite low key that night, because I just didn't realize the scope of what it could be.
Yeah.
But I caught on very quickly.
Well, and I think that was part of the delight for the viewers, was watching Kathy, because I remember Marvin Siegel, who we've had on the show previously. I remember him telling me he had been on the air, and his dad, Joseph Siegel, the founder, came to Marvin and said, kind of half jokingly, well, you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, whatever it was. And Marvin said, well, but Dad, Kathy Levine does these things all the time. And Joe's response was, yes, and she's Kathy. She can get away with it. So what was it about you that gave you carte blanche to get out there and do the things nobody else could get away with?
It is an entertainment medium with a sales component. And you've got to remember that people have their finger on the trigger to turn you off in a split second. They might tune in to see your hair. They might want to check out your nail polish color. But in the end, if you don't have a great product and a compelling sell, they're not sticking around. And you got to be funny. I am a gifted storyteller. And Marvin is a brilliant salesman. He does his homework. I can tell you he preps 27 hours a day, knows his product. But the difference between us is I bring levity and fun. And I mean, if I can't have a good time when I'm working, I'm not effective. And I was always able to weave in stories. Don't forget, I was single at the time. I was able to weave in the date from hell story. I'm always self-deprecating. I can always talk about my failed diet, bad hair days. I can say stuff about myself that people can identify with. And I really think that became an endearing quality that they enjoyed watching. And if I had a good product, if I caught a great show that night with stuff I loved, I could sell the hell out of it.
Yeah. I want to go back and talk more about the early days of QVC, but this is the perfect segue into your friendship with Joan Rivers, because it's one thing when you have a guest and a host on camera and it looks like, wow, those two are really getting along. But the reality is, a lot of the times, the minute the light goes off, the guest is back in his or her car, back to the hotel. The host is off doing his or her thing. That camaraderie doesn't turn into an actual friendship. You had a friendship with Joan Rivers.
Yes. She, first of all, people, if you didn't know her, a lot of people said she was brusque, hilarious. She cut you at your knees if she didn't like you, but she was extremely bright, very well read, and very kind. But when we first met, when I was told she was coming to QVC, I said, what does she know about jewelry? They said, she doesn't know anything. She just happens to have some nice jewelry. She and her husband would go to all the antique stores. Her husband was English. Edgar was English. And they would go to all these stores and they'd buy gorgeous stuff. So she had really cool vintage jewelry. So they tell me they're going to have, Joe Siegel says, we're going to have a cocktail party and we're going to bring Joan in. Well, I'm nervous because not so much I'm going to meet Joan Rivers, but this show depends on our getting along.
Yeah.
So if she doesn't like me, it's a problem. So I was as nervous as could be. And I didn't have designer clothes. We weren't making big money back in the day. She's coming in with the Chanel and the Gucci and the Pucci and the whole 9 yards. Kathy's wearing whatever fits. So she comes in and I say, she drove from New York with her gang. And I said, would you like a ladies' room? And she said, no, I'm good. No problem. So I'm standing there. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
How was your drive? Good. Are you hungry? No. Would you like to use the ladies' room? He says, No, I'm good. That was the second time I asked. So I keep thinking she came from New York. She's got to use the ladies' room, but I didn't realize she had stopped because she liked Popeye's chicken. So she always stopped to eat chicken on the way in and use the bathroom. So about the third time I said, "You want to use the ladies?" She said, "What's with you in the ladies' room?" I said, "Look," I said, "I'm so damn nervous I could pee in my pants. I don't need the ladies' room." I said, "This is supposed to work, and I'm terrified." She said, and then she cursed. And she just said, "We're going to be fine."
Yeah.
And I said, "All righty then." And it worked. And the truth is, she did not know much about the technical aspects of jewelry, things called a lobster claw clasp, a certain way something would close, a certain kind of an earring clutch. And those are the little things that I needed to teach her. And most celebrities don't want to know. They don't want to learn, and they don't want to be quiet. They want all about themselves on camera. She was flat out, "You take the lead, whatever you say, I am here to support you." And then one day the product was not doing well. It just wasn't. And it was a great product. I think it was magnetic earrings with like 10 changes of color. So you could take out the red and put in the blue and then take out the purple and la, la, la. And for some reason, they were just not kicking butt. So she said, "I don't know what to do. It's terrible." And I said, would you give it to me? Would you just sit quiet and give it to me?" She said, "Sure." She shut up for 5 minutes, and I grabbed a bunch of models and made them all keep changing earrings. And if you're wearing the red outfit, wear the purple to contrast. And here's the yellow with the cinnamon. And she just sat there. And when it was over, she said, "Incredible, incredible." She was so lovely and complimentary. And I have to say, of all the celebrities I ever worked with, and I love Richard Simmons, I loved Ron Popeil. They were great, hardworking people. Of all the celebrities, she was the most willing to learn, willing to listen, and gracious. She always gave me a piece of jewelry from my mother. And I said, "Joan, you're not allowed to give me a piece of jewelry. You can't give me jewelry. It's not yours. It's inventory. What we bring out to you on the set belongs in inventory." She said, "You take a piece of jewelry or I'm not going on."
Oh,
okay, I'll take a piece of jewelry. And she's giving jewelry to the models and to the little guy that wheels her food cart in. And at the end of the year, there's like a $37,000 debt. And it was hilarious. But when my mother passed away, she had 100 pieces of Joan's jewelry. 100. I know. I counted them. I gave them to a charity. But yeah, so she was really most gracious and just a lot of fun. She had great stories, and she never liked to rehearse beforehand with me. I couldn't say, what are we going to talk about? Keep it fresh, keep it fresh. Yeah. She was just brilliant, very sharp.
You mentioned Ron Popeil, one of the greatest minds maybe to invent products, would you say? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
There's no question.
Yeah.
The difference between me and Ron Popeil is that I took it as a job that I loved, and while I was there, was focused. For him, it was air.
Yeah.
It was 24/7, breathe it, think it. And I will tell you that Joy Mangano is the same way. Lori Grenier was the same way. These were all Q people. Yeah. Every thought was about, what can I create? What can I do next? I'm not an inventor. I'm not a product creator. So I was more on, how do I sell their thing? But Ron Popeil was very focused, very serious, rarely playful. I saw him in Vegas once. And even standing in line for a meal, he was like in his own world thinking. So delightful, but absolutely his success was well earned, well deserved, because it was what he did all the time.
You mentioned Vegas. You were very fortunate. Back in those days, QVC did a lot of traveling and a lot of remotes. The networks, none of them really do that much of it anymore. Where have you been? Where have you fallen in love with?
Well, they invented a bus.
That's right.
Would go around. Yeah, it was the QVC local, and it was to go to all of the 50 states in search of 10 entrepreneurs who have something fabulous that we could put on air representing their state. So the bus went everywhere. Well, and I hope I don't offend any of your viewers. It was a joke, but I said to my boss, do not send me to a vowel state. Vowel meaning Idaho, Iowa,
Ohio, yes,
Alabama, Ohio. Trust me, it was nothing personal. I wanted to go to Hawaii.
Of course.
Wait a
of
minute.
course.
So my boss says to me, well, Alaska starts with an A. I said, well, no, Alaska's, no, I'm good with
There's
Alaska.
an exception.
So I was sent to 14 states, of which one was Ohio, and I loved it. Well, my mom went to Ohio State University,
Oh,
so
there you
she's
go.
a Buckeye, but the Ohio State Fair was on, and we were in the arena with thousands of people. It was a huge show, and the fair was a ball. And then I was also sent to, well, I went to answer your question, I went to, it's hard for me to remember. Bob knows better. We did a lot together. We did Hawaii, Alaska, Chicago, I'm going to give the city Chicago, which is an I state, Illinois. I believe I did Boston. I may have done New York. Oh yeah, these were great. I mean, Detroit. We had a blast in Detroit on the I guess the pier or something. Yeah. And then California. I think I must have done Nevada. See, I had written a book, and I also was being sent on tour by my publisher. So I was doing the local, and then I was also making, signings at Pittsburgh and all over the place. So I did a lot of traveling, but I have to say that Alaska was probably the most fun, and Hawaii, because of what happened afterwards. Steve Bryan and I were partnered up to go to Alaska. And we flew to Anchorage, and then we hopped over to wherever the show was, Juneau or something. And the sun doesn't set till 4:00 in the morning. So you're like buzz-eyed, wide awake, and we're eating lobsters and we're having a ball. But we were told that in Alaska, you have to take the helicopter up to the glacier. Don't pass on this opportunity. Well, this is something really cool for our viewers to hear about. So we get all suited up and we go up on the glacier, and it's incredible. It's this deep blue, as deep as the eye can see. And it's really incredible to think that, how that happened. So we get back, and it was about, I don't remember, but at the time, maybe $150 a person. So we give it to our boss, and our boss looks at it, says, how was it? I said, Jack, it's like life-changing to be on a glacier. It's incredible. Really? You had a good time? We had a ball. He says, good, because you're paying for it. We're not covering that.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, but. So we each got stuck with the $150 bill. Then Hawaii, Paul Kelly joins us, another host.
Oh, yeah.
And Lisa Robertson, who at the time was not a host. She was Paul's girlfriend, and he brought her along. So the four of us go out to dinner, and this was me, Bob, Paul, Lisa. Lisa's a teetotaler, but the other three of us were not.
Yeah.
Bob is a connoisseur of fine wine. You should never let Bob pick your wine. Ever. Stick with the $29 bottle. So he orders 2 bottles of wine. All I can tell you is the bill comes in, it's over $1,000.
Oh my!
This is a long time ago.
Wow.
This is somebody's monthly paycheck. Now, granted, we're splitting it between the three of us because it's me, Bob, and Paul. Lisa's his guest. But still, you're looking at $350, $400 plus tip. It was a fortune. We give it to our boss. And our boss says, why does this sound familiar? Was the dinner good? Oh, it's fabulous. The Hawaiian food. We had such delicacies. Really, did you have a good time? We had a great time. Well, good, because you're paying for it. So we got killed on that tour. It was really expensive, but I have to say, wonderful. And the people, I have to say, what made my job special was how the people were so warm and welcoming. And I went to Orlando. I took my mother. People waited in line. It was 40 degrees. I don't know what happened, but it was a cold snap, and people were standing freezing and still waiting in line to say hello, shake a hand, get an autograph, take a picture. We didn't have selfies. It was a real picture with a camera, but the audience was what made it wonderful. You can't see them, but they're there. And we used to get mail, real mail, letters, hundreds. And they were 99% of the time lovely. And then when you got a hate letter, we put it up on the bulletin board and had a contest as to who got the best hate letter.
I love that. It was
between me and Bob won.
I love that. This is one of the things that I hope people that don't remember these days of QVC will take to heart, because I heard from, I'll just say, a vendor and leave it at that, at one of the major networks, who said, it's lost its interactivity. It's lost its fun. It's not like it used to be. And I think what you're showing is how very different it was. Do you still watch QVC now? Do you see some similarities, or is it just too different?
Well, I go on HSN, and
Yeah.
whereas I used to travel down there for Nutrisystem, now I just do it from home because they have closed. I don't know if anybody knows this. The studios are completely closed to guests. Nobody is in the. I begged to come down to the studio. It's a much easier sell in person rather than on Skype or Zoom or whatever. But I don't watch it a lot, and that's part of the problem. You have. I'll back up. 35 years ago, you had ABC, NBC, CBS, QVC, HSN. You had nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
And if mom needed a birthday gift for daughter-in-law and she didn't drive, she had to wait for church on Sunday, Sonny to come over, pick her up, and drive her 75 miles to the nearest JCPenney. There was no way to purchase online. The word didn't exist online. Online used to mean when you were at the movie theater and you were online to get a ticket to go in. Yeah. So there was nothing. And if you lived in Japip and you couldn't get something, this was the most wonderful way to show you variety and quality. It presented in a light and fun way, and it did super, super well. Today, you need it. Click on any of a jillion sites and it arrives tomorrow. So the competition is fierce. I think the pressure on the hosts is much stronger. Yeah. I think the emphasis on sales is much stronger versus playtime. When you get a call, it's not, I used to say, hey, Mary from, Paducah, Kentucky, how you doing today? What are you doing for dinner? You cooking? What are you cooking? I talked. And then I'd say, so by the way, how come you bought this bracelet? Yeah. Oh, I bought it because it's so pretty. Great. Good for you. You enjoy it. It was social. It is now an extremely hard, I don't want to say hard sell, but it's a pressured environment to make it with the competition biting at their heels all day long.
I mentioned in my initial introduction to the show about how QVC, when it started, and for its first 6, 7, 8 years, whatever, it was still grouped with the HSNs and the CVNs back then, and it was the butt of comedians' jokes. What did Barry Diller do that changed how people perceive TV shopping? Because now suddenly Hollywood was paying attention to this thing.
Right. Truthfully, Joan is the one that made the difference.
Okay, fair.
When Joan Rivers started making money, Kenneth J. Lane called her and said, what do you think? And she said, I think you ought to get your butt over there. And then after Kenneth J. Lane, the doors opened wide. And we had, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a clothing designer. Her name's Mary McFadden, famous clothing designer. We had so many. Barry Diller brought elegance to the set. He wanted it prettier. And I had a conversation with him because you have to understand, I took ownership of this company in my heart. This is my company. I built this company. You show up one fine Monday and you're going to take over. What do you know? And what are you going to do? So I asked for a meeting with him and we went out to dinner. I've never been so nervous in my entire life, ever. I didn't know who he was. My mother said to me, you're going out with Barry Diller. You know who he is? I said, no, he's some dude that just took over the company. She goes, I recommend you ask somebody. So I knew a girl who worked for Paramount. She was a fan. Yeah. So I called her and she worked in the legal office. And I said, who's Barry Diller? And she said, holy girl, I got to get you on board. And she sent me a 500-page tome of every article ever written about him. Wow. Now I'm nervous. Now I'm scared. I meet him for dinner. It's a torrential rainstorm, the kind that floods up to your tire tops. I had bought a new outfit, drenched. The hair was all set and perfect, drenched. And I bring a bottle of red, a bottle of white, because I don't know what he drinks. He doesn't drink. I mean, it was such a catastrophe. But I said to him, so what are you going to do for this company? He said, I'm going to clean it up. And I said, listen, I said, are you familiar with the dressing room at Loman's? He said, of course. I said, you give me a Donna Karan dress at 80% off. I don't care if the dressing room's not pretty. And he said, how about if I give you Donna Karan and a beautiful dressing room? He said, we need to make the place not look like hee-haw. So what he did was he beautified it. He made it classy looking. We had this deer on the mantelpiece. He said, the deer goes. We love the deer. We want this brass deer. Everybody knows about the brass deer. Just a deer sitting on a mantle. We love that deer. We wanted it. So he cleaned it. There were orchids. It was beautiful. But he attempted to bring a lot of celebrities in, but you don't just bring a celebrity in. It doesn't work that way. No. You have to bring someone in who has an affiliation to the product. They have to have some, that'd be like saying, let's get Kathy Levine to sell cars. Well, I don't know anything about cars. I don't have a passion for cars.
Fair enough.
I can do it, but it's called the talking head. So he brought a lot of people to the table who might have been talking heads, but I don't think they were actually going to work. And we had like a Joan Collins, we had Angie Dickinson. They were in and out. They just didn't have a passion. So he did a lot of things creatively. I'm not sure that the business was the business that he wanted to be in after all, but he was very good to me. He was very kind. And he did say, is there anything you don't like? I said, I do the linen shows. I do 4 straight hours of sheets. I said, you try selling a pillowcase over and over. Well, the next day, the schedule changed and I was off the sheets, the linen show.
Oh, really?
And he said, what else don't you like? And I said, we do these costume shows. We do like a gold rush wearing 1700s cowboy dudes and Miss Kitty from Gunsmoke. And I said, how would you like to wear one of those stinky pitted out outfits? Next day, the edict came down, no more costumes. So wow. I at least got my 2 cents in, and he was lovely to me. He's not an easy man. A lot of people have things to say about how he's brusque and can be unkind, but never to me. Always really nice to me. And I still see him. I bump into him. He eats at a certain restaurant in New York often, and I tend to be there once or twice a year. And I walk right up to his table and I give him a big hello. Yeah. And I had an outfit that was by his wife. He's married to, okay, Kathy, it's coming to me. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I had one of her outfits on, and I said, show your wife this picture. That's me in her outfit. He said, that's wonderful. So he said, oh my gosh, I'm having such a brain hiccup. She's famous. It'll come to me.
I'm a pop culture dummy, so I have no idea.
She's famous. She's been married to him forever, and his sweetheart forever, since they were 18 back in the day of Studio 54. Diane von Furstenberg.
Oh,
okay. Diane von Furstenberg. She is Mrs. Diller. She came on QVC. We worked together, and she was very nice, but she didn't have a good sense of humor. I had trouble with her.
Well, we are going to talk a lot more about some of the people that you have worked with in your career on our next show, because we have to pause for today. We're going to stop for right now, but we will continue with Kathy Levine next time, and I think it'll be a good one. We'll get more into what Kathy is doing at the moment, and I'm sure get many more very funny stories. So I hope you will check that episode out when it becomes available. Thank you, by the way, for all of your 5-star ratings. Please share this podcast with your friends. Let them know Kathy Levine is on the show, and also let them know about some of the other legends we've talked to. Bob Circosta. That was one of our first series we did. Now, I hope you're going to check me out on Twitter and on Facebook, Shawn Wilsie, ShawnWilsie, and on Instagram at SWilsie. Thank you for downloading this edition of Are We On The Air? This has been a King Bobby production.